Hey folks, Real Honesty with Charmithlin. I'm Charmithlin, and this is Unpopular Wrestling Opinion episode 11, where I'm going to talk about something I just thought of recently. And I've thought about this over like the past few years, and even looking back on when I was watching both brands, Impact and WWE. But I thought about it, and from 2000, maybe not 2004, maybe late 2004, but '04 to '09, Impact Wrestling consistently delivered more than WWE did. Now, I'm not saying that WWE didn't have better production values and didn't have some really good quality matches and didn't have, like stuff like Shawn Michaels versus Cena or the big WrestleManias and stuff like that. And there weren't grand matches and there weren't some really, really good matches and feuds, CM Punk versus Jeff Hardy and that kind of stuff. But I would argue that Impact Wrestling, and you call it NWA TNA because it was during that time, at least till '07, and then they switched over to just being TNA, but I'm going to call it Impact Wrestling. Because that sounds better, because that's what, their frickin' TV show was called. I would argue that NWA, TNA, Impact Wrestling had better TV, and at times, better flowing pay-per-views than WWE, maybe not all the time, but a lot of the pay-per-views during that time from '04 to, and especially since they didn't start doing 3-hour pay-per-views until Victory Road '04 in November, to '09, like the end of '09, even with the hype of Hogan coming in. I would argue that those pay-per-views a lot of the times really delivered. Now, were there duds? You're going to have duds no matter what wrestling company you are. Not everybody's going to hit a goddamn home run. But think about the rivalries that they had. AJ Styles and Samoa Joe. AJ Styles and Jeff Jarrett. Raven and Jeff Jarrett, which wasn't, all that great. That actually, their rivalry back in '03 was probably better. But Triple X versus America's Most Wanted. America's Most Wanted in Team 3D. Beer Money in Team 3D. Beer Money in the Motor City Machine Guns. The British Invasion were pretty damn good too. It's like you think about teams like Beer Money and, 3D, but Beer Money and America's Most Wanted and stuff like that. And yes, James Storm is the one that ties both those together. Yes, the Hardys were, the Hardys were together the Hardys weren't even together during that time. It wasn't until way, way later. But that kind of stuff. And the world title picture. Yes, once you got Jeff Jarrett out of the way as being a full-time champion, it got a lot better. You had Sting versus Abyss, which I thought was a pretty good long-running storyline, even with the goofiness of James Mitchell being Abyss's father. I didn't really care for that, but it was nice that Sting finally broke through to Abyss. Christian versus Jeff Jarrett. Christian managing to, get launched right into the title picture and stuff like that against all odds 2006. And the great tag team matches that followed. Daniels and Styles being longtime rivals. One of the best matches of that decade from 2000 to 2009 did not take place in WWE. It took place in Impact at Unbreakable 2005. Samoa Joe, AJ Styles, and Christopher Daniels for the X Division title, and it main evented that pay-per-view. It was the only Unbreakable event they did, at least the only one by that name, but it was a hell of a main event, and something they never topped. They tried to, I want to say, I think it was Against All Odds 2006 they tried that. That didn't work so good. It was good, but it wasn't as good as that one. Their Turning Point 2009 match came close, because that was for the World Heavyweight title, but a lot of the X Division action, even though it was car crash stuff, when it was allowed to tell a good psychological story, it worked really, really well. And yes, there were bad characters. Like, I didn't care for the Suicide character from the Impact Wrestling video game, and Dr. Stevie Abyss storyline was terrible. And a lot of Vince Russo's writing was bad, like the Last Rites match, the way that was all goofy between Sting and Abyss. Kudos to Sting for getting, one, he took that candlestick shot pretty good and got busted open, and even took that chokeslam on the casket. And there were Fire Russo chants coming up. But they had a lot of good stuff to it. Like Slammiversary 2007, where Kurt Angle was crowned the first ever TNA era heavyweight champion. Christian achieved some great, great things in Impact Wrestling by being a 2-time NWA champion. when he was never allowed, in his first run in WWE, was never allowed to touch the big gold. And yeah, 3D did really, really well there. They discovered a lot of really good young talents. Nash even did well with some of the young talents, like Johnny Devine and Alex Shelley as Paparazzi Productions. The Main Event Mafia was a really, really good stable of older guys teaching these younger guys some respect. And then they kind of muddied up that whole storyline, even though that was pretty good. Stuff like Bound for Glory. Bound for Glory had two really, really good multi-tag team matches at 2008 and 2009, respectively. Bound for Glory at times felt like a bigger show. 05 had its moments, but it was kind of messed up by like some last-minute booking decisions, like Nash being unable to be part of the show. 2006 had a big feel to it. 07, 08, 09. 2010 was okay, but I mean, we're not going to talk about 2010 because that was a Hogan era, and I didn't really care for that. But so many good moments and matches did happen. I mean, this was before the Claire Lynches and that kind of stuff. Yeah, Pac-Man Jones happened during that time, Bound for Glory 2007, or leading up to it, and that was terrible. But Ron Killings is a former NWA champion. You know, I mean, NWA TNA champion, but former two-time champion. Beat Ken Shamrock to become the second champion. Then he lost it to Jarrett. And then won it again in 04 for a little bit. That didn't really go too well. But AJ Styles was discovered there. You know, I mean, he had been in WCW a little bit, had a few jobber matches in WWE, and didn't sign a contract, and ended up being the guy in Impact Wrestling for about close to 12 years. It was more like about 11. 11 and a half. But people like Christopher Daniels did really, really well there, even though they should have probably used him a whole lot better. Like I said, teams like Triple X, that cage match at Turning Point 2004 is one that still sticks out in my mind. Impact for a number of years got tag team wrestling right. And a lot of times, even though there were some good tag teams in WWE on both brands, because they were doing the brand splits this time, tag team wrestling wasn't as revered. Even with London and Kendrick being longtime champions on the SmackDown brand, they weren't given a whole lot of really, really good matches and good feuds to go with. There were feuds in Impact Wrestling that the talents were knocking out of the park. They were bound and determined to make this product matter and make this product really, really fun and really, really good. Like, I really enjoyed it. I would be more excited to tune into Impact. You know, Impact on Spike TV, week in and week out, than I would for WWE TV, because there were times that it was really, really good, but there were a lot of times where you're like, okay, this is kind of shit. And yeah, you're going to have egos anywhere in wrestling, whether it's in Impact, whether it's in New Japan, WWE, or looking back on WCW, AWA, that kind of stuff, whatever. But with WWE, it was much more pronounced. A lot of times, it's like you had from 07 to 09, like Cena and Orton main event, or were at least in the mix of how many pay-per-views? How many? Whether it was against each other, or whether it was one or the other in the main event of a lot of these pay-per-views. And it's just like, it was ridiculous. Because it was the same damn thing. At least in Impact, and not all the time. Yeah, Jeff Jarrett's Reign of Terror and stuff like that. But at least for the main events of a lot of their big shows, they got it right usually. I mean, like Sting was the main event of Bound for Glory from 2006 to 2009. But that made sense because Sting was the icon, and he even put over AJ Styles at Bound for Glory 2009. You had Samoa Joe beat Kurt Angle at Lockdown 2008, a pretty damn good pay-per-view, and I will at one point rank all the Lockdown events till 2013, maybe even 2014, from worst to best. Because honestly, that needs to be done. I'm not once it gets to where they're off pay-per-view. And in fact, I might do the 2014 one. I might just do 2005 to 2013. Lockdown was a really good event, the all steel cage thing, and then it got watered down. But a lot of their great stuff, like, I mean, Sting versus Foley at Lockdown 2009, maybe not consistently the greatest match that either guy had, but they were also older. They were also a lot older. So I just really wanted to say that, like, pretty much at the end of this, because I mean I'm not going to go too long in this video. In fact, I'm pretty much done. That let's give some credit to NWA, TNA, Impact Wrestling in those years. I mean, you can give them credit since then. I mean, I'm not saying 2010 to whatever was all bad, but a lot of the, the Hogan era stuff, and then even after Hogan left and all the resetting, they tried and the talents have tried, but it hasn't been the same to me. That doesn't mean it's necessarily been bad. But I want to focus on the 04 to, especially the Impact era, where like they got on Fox Sports Net in June of 04 and then got on Spike TV in October of 05, and things were great there. No, not everything was great. Sure, you had the Jenna Maraska, Charmel fiasco, Victory Road 09, and I will do that. But also you had the rise of the knockouts. And that's something I'll actually cover just before I end this video. WWE was not getting the women's wrestling, right. After Trish and Lita left, even though they had Mickie James Victoria and they had a few others, they were pushing the wrong people in the ring. Like Ashley Mazzaro. I'm not saying she's a bad person, but she was not able to really wrestle. Impact Wrestling they should have paid the women better, first off. Gail Kim, Roxy Laveau, Angelina Love, even though she blocked me on Twitter, and I mean, I know why. I didn't say anything directly to her, but I was never kind necessarily about her. She at least was somebody that could get in the mix and wrestle. Velvet Sky was not necessarily somebody I cared for. I just didn't. I just didn't. She just wasn't my cup of tea. Not saying she's a bad person, but Awesome Kong, Gail Kim and Awesome Kong had a great feud. Then they did bring in Mickie and Victoria and stuff like that. But I mean, I think Mickie came in in like 2010. Yeah, she came in like 2010. Victoria came in like 09. There were a lot of really, really good women that they had. And they got women's wrestling right more often than not, like the Battle Royal stuff and the ladder match. I think it was a makeover ladder match. It was really stupid. They had some women that had no business being in the ring, Rock Khan for one. But a lot of times they got it right with the women. And for a period, the knockout segments were some of the highest rated stuff. Because women were allowed to go out there and go all out and prove that they could do what, the men could do. So anyway, that's what I got to say about that. I think especially the earlier years of Impact Wrestling get way too little credit. And maybe she gets some more credit. And obviously I didn't cover every single thing. So if you're an Impact Wrestling fan or you used to be, leave in the comments some moments that you remember from like the period of 04 to 09. Or even go back to the Asylum days and leave some comments about that stuff. Or leave some comments about current stuff if you would like. But anyway, I just wanted to focus on the 04 or 09 period, which was one of my favorite times to actually be a wrestling fan. Because TV actually meant something, and both companies, to me, were doing, some great things, even with the potholes they had. And certainly Impact had them, and certainly WWE had them, despite the fact they had the bigger platform. Anyway, let me know what you thought of this video. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Twitter link in the description. It's been real awesome with Charm Ritlin. I'm Charm Ritlin, and I will see you soon.